All right, welcome back to Yes, Your Expression of Self. I'm Choi Ying, and today I'm going to introduce you to amazing, powerful being, soul, wisdom, a lot of compassion. I am on honor that she accepted as one of my co-hosts now. Within not just about my podcast, is really what we both going to share. And some of you might know her. Her name is Emerald. Emerald, I want to welcome you, and I want to start with because today you are going to share with us really what you able to cultivate over the years and understanding what mindset transformation is. Are you there, Emerald?
I am. Thank you, Choying, and I love being here. And greetings to everyone, and thank you for listening in. So, yes, Choying, I'm really excited about this podcast and this mindset transformation because I feel like that it's been just 99% of my life, in my focus. So, yeah, let's get in.
Appreciate that. And first of all, I want to say, of course, mindset transformation is part of what you're going to teach in this. We can say workshop. We can say classes. But I want to dive deep into exactly how does someone new and wants to break away from what internalized their mindset, and how does that transformation look like? Can you share some process?
Sure. So, one of the main things that I've cultivated within my own journey is when I'm looking at the mindset transformation, one of the big things that came out to me was, and the first thing that came out to me was allowing. And when we say these words, the thing that was interesting to me is when I heard these things, and I heard these directions coming from internally. But because of the whole spiritual community and the new age thing and a lot of books I read which were very helpful, but I had heard these terms before, allowing, going within, and these things just seem so cliche. And I was like, I want to get to the point where I am going deeply to the root of what these things really mean. So when I proposed that to myself and to the universe, I got a deep answer and I started into a deep journey inward. And when I say inward, it flashed to my mind the INWORD, and listening and developing and allowing as was the very first step, which I think when I look at ancient meditations, in my opinion, I feel like that the ancient meditations were getting to that place of simply allowing, going inside those words and just allowing them without judgment. Kind of like when we're in a relationship and we go for couple counseling or something like that, or in the business culture, if there's a situation between, say, an employee or a manager, and there's a negotiation or there's a mediating, the first thing that the mediator would say to both parties is, let's just allow the other person time to speak. And so there's so many things inside of us that we've, through our religion, our society, our belief systems, if you believe in reincarnation, other life patterns and life cycles, where ourself, there's words within that just want to speak. They just want to have a chance to speak. And so from that aspect, we, or speaking for myself, I found that there was a lot of judgment. And so I would be the person that's at the table, and the mediator has asked me just to allow this person to speak, which would be myself. And I'm already listening with judgment in my ears. I'm listening on how I'm going to counteract or ignore or negate what's being said. And so I have resistance. And so for the very first aspect of this mind transformation, for me to summarize your question, Choying, it was in the state of allowing that in word just to speak without judgment, without um, being ready to make any assessment at all, but simply having the ears and allowing its full communication to be free to speak to me. So allowing was the very first part, the real deep aspect, and that took a lot of inner relaxing. It wasn't an easy thing to do. I found out that that word allowing is not very cliche at all. So I'll pause right there, and I'll stop there.
No, I was taking time to actually observe what you just shared. That is pretty powerful because I do align with even my own process of mindset transformation. Back then, I really don't know what really mindset or transformation is. I think what you say, allowing, is something that's I now say maybe is a very surface level, right? But once I began doing this work and what you are doing and teaching, helping other people, is that there is this inner critic, right? Constructing language like English or whatever language we speak, we construct based on the conditions of what we understand, how those words are defining each other. And then we piece them together and then we express it not in full expressions of the feeling or the emotions, but we, or at least I learned that I wasn't allowing myself to speak freely, even though I might not have big vocabularies, I might not have such of all this. So there was a lot of inner judgment, and there's a lot of things that I wasn't even aware of. And what you're saying after a while is that we kind of gradually learn the steps, and then I made aware consciously that, oh my God, I was really judging myself. I was constructing things, and I shut down and I reformulate to express something that is not really who I am because I didn't even know any better. So basically, over time, I begin to really allow myself to free flow. If I speak something that maybe that wasn't accurate, maybe it wasn't precise what I want to express, but I already reacted, responded. But it takes me into the mindset of transformations that slowly I begin to not say I necessarily changed my mindset yet, but I knew that I was judging myself. Is that where the transformation comes in when we begin to really pay attention of this inner chatter?
Yes, I think so in my experience, because when you touched on something really important, and that was that inner chatter and the judgment. And when that inner chatter is very important because it's going to give us a place to understand. And when you said something else really powerful, when you said, I'm looking at that and I don't even know what a mindset transformation is. And all of that to me is the purity. And like you said, it's the very beginning, but the beginning is also the end. Because, like a lot of the ancient teachings talk, that the more you go within, the less you the less you realize that you know. And that's where the freedom is. The freedom isn't in really all of finding all of the structures. That's where our mind has already that's where our mind is locked a lot of times, in all of these structures. And these structures do create the judgment, and the judgment creates more structures. And through that structure we find more and more limitations, and it's just like a vicious cycle. But in that process of allowing, we just expand, and we just recognize, and we observe. And so through that awareness, our mind does start to transform, because it literally starts to, in our, as we do that inside of ourselves, we start to do that with other people without even really realizing it. Someone is talking to you and you're just allowing them to speak. You don't feel the need to put all of this energy into the judgment or even to understand, but just simply to allow. And somehow through that allowance comes some insight, or some inner wisdom or some acknowledgement of something. And it may not be exactly what the person is communicating at that point in time, but you are aware that, hey, I got something from the conversation. I was able to pick up on something simply by allowing. So that simplicity of it all is where a lot of the ancient teachings, their roots are. Their roots are in the simplicity and the allowing, which is already expanding that mindset. Because when I come to speak to you, my experiences are uniquely to me. And so that structure that I've created through my own awareness is a natural aspect of the life that I've lived. My racial identity, my whether I'm male or female, or my sexual identity, my income, the neighborhood I've been in, all of these things have given me certain experiences, which then give me an awareness from my perspective. But to talk to you gives me, and if I'm allowing that aspect of myself to just take in what you're saying. I don't have to compare and compete. I simply am just allowing. And through that allowance, I recognize there's a lot of similarities. There may be a lot of differences, but I'm just being aware and I'm expanding. And that's transforming my mindset simply by being um, um, being able to receive and then reciprocate that information. And so letting go of the restrictions, and so for me, this mindset transformation has been broken down into two simple aspects, and that's um, expansion and restriction. And that's the way that we breathe. And so when the ancient teachings talked about focusing in on the breath, I used to view that in a different way. Now I'm looking at that simply as, whether we're talking about mind transformation or whether we're talking about business models or whether we're talking about love relationships, self-awareness, the ability to expand through awareness and allowance, expanding out, and then being able to also draw in, which is the expansion and restriction. That's the breath. Expanding and restricting, expanding, that's the heartbeat. That's all of the things that signify life. And so in this mindset transformation, that formula for me has become the same as the breathing or the beating of the heart, the rhythmic aspect of expanding, receiving, allowing, expanding and receiving and allowing and restricting and expanding. And that rhythmic flow keeps life um, keeps life young. It keeps life flexible. It keeps life um, um, it keeps life abundant. And so I will pause there.
No, thank you. As you're speaking, listening, and also in my thoughts as while you're actually moving, helping with, I'm just breathing, I just allowing, I just letting go. I have questions, I have thoughts, and it allows me to just listen actively, without response, without reactions, without what to say next. Right? I think this goes to the mindset transformation that goes beyond the level of just being like you said at the beginning, when we first not knowing, so we practice what is allowing. But would you bring up something that I do want to share is that it is so powerful that the ancient teach us, even in a way of go within, whether it's meditation, whether it's just standing out in nature in the middle of the night and looking at the moons or staring at the stars, right? The more we go within, the more we don't know, right? So I had this, I had this funny thing about where when people share this, and this is what goes into really what you teach us, and what helping break away those conditions, the mindset that when we read stuff, let's go back to the thoughts when we go within more and we don't know. So people puts in sharing this stuff that says the more I know, the more I don't know. If you hear of that, but then I observe these people, and they always have something to say. But what the conditions of the mindset is when someone doesn't understand who they are yet, or they in the progress of learning what even in their minds, maybe not a mindset, maybe not a condition, they just learning and just rejecting the things that they feel in pain, or maybe want to learn more about joy. When they read that message, they don't understand yet that why is it for me when I used to read that, I'm like, why this person keep talking, but it's very destructive. When I say destructive, is that someone else will get shut down because they might follow some person or someone who may have this authority of consider a coach, or consider a teacher, or consider having a lot more years of experience. And then they say, oh my god, this guy have a lot to say, but every time he says it, he say, the more I know, the more I don't know. So this person, from the outside standpoint, they shut themselves down, they shrink themselves. I don't know if you feel the same way. I find he's also very destructive with that.
So do you feel like, just so that I'm clear, so do you feel like that saying that phrase is confusing? Am I understanding what you're saying with that? Do you feel like that's confusing to someone listening?
It is that's a great question. In some way it is confusing, but it's very truth to that message. So the message is, it still have to be, each person have to go within themselves to go navigate within, per se, what am I judging with this message, right? But if someone are following, we follow, we imitate first. It's kind of like as a child, right? We imitate our parents. So going back to the message, to say, man, the more I know, the more I don't know. But then I'm out there every single day talking, talking, and talking. And then if you look at someone that who is very suppressed, who is very maybe abused, maybe a lot of traumas, and they just want to be able to say, hear me, I have something to say, I have something to share. And we all have this incredible gift, but I think that not knowing when we present this information, and I might present it as a joke, I might present it as, at the moment, this is what I need to say. The more I know, the more I don't know. But then I go into this whole instructions. This is how you live. This is how you should be. Then is also very destructive to the world, because we label everyone and condition everyone. This is how we should be. And then from the person perspective, if I am the other person that comes in, that I'm just learning how to heal myself, learning how to get better myself, and I just finally learned something new, and I want to share it to the world, and I just saw this message from this someone that I might give the authority, I might give permissions and power, that this person is someone I look up to. Oh my God, they have so much experience. And he say, the more he knows, the more he doesn't know, I'm afraid to share. I'm afraid to share it. So I go in and I shut down again. And I stay back in this shrinking mindset.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I love the fact that you brought that up. And I think because when those ancient teachers taught certain things, they used it as riddles or they used it as parables, and it wasn't taken literally like a lot of things in the Bible. It wasn't supposed to be taken literally. It was, again, to get you to go inside yourself and ask, what did this person just share? So all of these things, because in the ancient teachings, they never were focused on, like a lot of the modern day teachings are, telling you what the structure is or how to do these things. They were simply proposing things that hopefully would take you in an inward journey. and you solving for X. That's what I call it. You solving for the riddle yourself. And then you coming out with that awareness that was unique to you. And yes, that is very valuable. And yes, we all, because you said a really important thing. Well, I'll finish that thought. Yes, we all look to one another and we imitate one another because we come into the world, like you said, as a child, looking at our parents. And it's not because we don't have an awareness of ourselves, but because of that pure awareness, we recognize that we're learning and we're expressing from everything because everything is part of the one us. So that aspect, so it's no different than if we're looking at nature and we've looked at that same tree in our backyard. We grew up with that tree and we've sat with that tree when we were 5, now we're 55, now we're 75. But we can go out and we can look at that tree and see something. That tree can teach us something different every single time about ourselves. And that's what that riddle really meant. It wasn't a a phrase to, like you said, make the shrinkage, but it was again a place to allow. It was a phrase to get you to be bold enough to explore and expand like you did as a child, because it wasn't that you were looking to your parents again for the fact that you had no awareness. You were so self-aware that you looked at your parents because you could see aspects of your parents in you. So that aspect of you was expressing itself, and that's what the ancient cultures talk about, the consciousness of God. The consciousness of God is observing all parts of itself and getting to know itself through those mirror aspects of itself. So it's paying attention to everything, and it's saying, and the phrase that the more I know, the more I find out I don't know, simply broken down into breaking the mystery, is simply saying that every single time I talked to you and we had a profound conversation and I learned so much, Twing, but every time I talk to you, I learn so much more. So in that one conversation, it seemed like I answered so many questions, or I have such a full 360 awareness. I'm complete in that circle of awareness. Just to talk to you again to find out that there's a whole nother level. This awareness has now brought me into an awareness that now talking to you from this perspective gives me a whole nother awareness. And so in other words, I'm never going to stop seeing the miracle of expression and life and knowledge come to me every single time I look. And so they say that in the scientific world, every time that they said, oh, the atom, we figured out the smallest particle. And as soon as they allowed themselves, and that's why I go back to that very basic, like you said, that surface level of allowance. As soon as the structure in their mindset could transform and say, well, wait a minute, I think there may be something more. They found something more. Then they said, oh, the atom isn't the smallest particle. The nanoparticle is the smallest particle. Well, if we allow ourselves to look deeper into the nanoparticle, we're going to find out that the nanoparticle is teaching us that there's more. So this is what that phrase actually means. It means to be bold and to be childlike and to expand and to recognize that every time you look at something, you can get it more information from what looks to be that same thing. So as people have said, I've read the book again for the first time. In other words, I've read this book a million times, but depending on how my mind has transformed, which is what we're talking about here today, that mindset transformation, depending on how far my mindset has transformed, those same words are now telling me a totally different thing. And I'm reading that same book for the first time. That book keeps transforming as my mind transforms, as I allow those words to say something more or different. I get a whole different book. And we experience this time and time and time and time again. So I love the fact that you brought that up, because that phrase taken literally rather than figuratively can be confusing. And like you said, it can put us in a feeling of, well, if for me to say this, does this mean that I'm I even know what I'm talking about? And of course, because of the continuation of existence, it's constantly expanding through awareness and allowance. And so the structure is what we see and the way that we understand it for now, which is very beneficial, because the book that someone wrote 65 years ago is helping me today. So if they were shy and didn't write that book, then that gift that they were giving me, they might not even be here to know I was ever born. But that gift that they of something that they said way back then from their mindset is helping me today. And then each time I read that, I've transformed through those words, and I'm reading it again for the second or the third time. And so I love what you said about that, and I would like to hear your thoughts on my perspective of that.
First of all, I think you just pumped me up, right? The courage and bold to express, is all about expressions. How do we express it? And going back to the ancients, you bring up a really good point. Maybe in my own awareness, why is it some of the ancient texts, ancient informations, still today are more powerful than all these modern books that we receive? And
Yes,
it has to
yes.
do with the culture, right? We also been so suppressed in some shape or form. I'm not speaking for everyone, but I do know in each one of us, especially what you're doing and teaching with the mindset transformations. Even they listen to this here today, or they listen tomorrow, over and over. It's always a different experience, because we begin by the awareness. We begin by listening, by analyzing first, right? You and I say one thing, and we automatically have this internal, whether it's a good judgment or a bad judgment. I don't agree with it. That's not right. This is not what it is. According to this, according to science, I say let's shut up together. Let's quiet. Let Emerald speak, right? Let Emerald speak. Let the sound come through the ear, and then we get into this. We get into this. Oh, another guided meditations, right? Another transformations, another affirmations. But we're not really listening deep in what you just bring up all these points to go within that is a symbolize, or the symbol that what you say, what you share, isn't the instructions of what Emerald say. I should be doing this. What Choi Ying said, we should be more of express it, even though we don't know. But we do. Do we have the right to express it? And then we go into the level of I'm being judged, I'm being ridiculed, I'm being punished, and all of this is not knowing that there's some form of transformation. What we talking about today, and what you have been sharing, and what exactly we're looking for, because the question that I have for you is someone listen to this and they want to get a little bit more understanding, because we're usually looking for instructions. We do, because I might have some internal thing that I want to solve. It could be as simple as, what kind of car should I get? I won't be listening to this podcast about mindset transformations. I'll be looking at other people that are dealerships and manufacture, right? So those are easy to solve. But what if people are looking more of, I am stuck in my own way? And a lot of times they don't even know they're stuck in their own way, but maybe they're looking to, how can I help others? How can I impact others but I don't know how to get this out there, that I have this internal inner knowing. Do you think that person needs a mindset transformation, and how do they go about that?
I do, and the reason why I'm going to say I answer with yes is because that's something that that's very deep in my heart, because I'll use the word issue. That's something that I acknowledge within myself often and every day. And so, um, talking with people, talking intimately with friends, and getting into just conversations while we're relaxing, and we feel safe to open up and express ourselves, and then say something comes out of my mouth, and then my friends say, you need to write a book, you need to do a podcast, because when you said that, that really helped me. Now they're giving me from their experience with me and the conversation and the energy, and they're giving me all of this feedback. This is what you need to do, because this, I'm telling you, this has helped me. You, the way you said it, I could relate, and all of these things. Now, me going inside again and allowing that to marinate, and allowing that to, it already has its own natural way of manifesting. Because when I was talking to my friends, I wasn't thinking about marketing to them. I wasn't thinking about how I'm going to get this out. I wasn't thinking about whether I've put this up on my Instagram, or how many times I've been on my social media sites, if I've responded to people's email. I was simply being, and in my being, people are responding, and they're letting me know that this has gone into their heart or mind space, and they are expressing transformation. I didn't have to show my degree. I didn't have to say where I went to school. I didn't have to take an online course. I simply was being. But now, as deep and profound as that is, because this person is saying this to me, or this group is saying this to me, for me to go into my mindset and to start to say, okay, they're encouraging me to put my voice out, put my book out. And I'm thinking to myself, well, look at all the people that have done that and have helped me. I'm listening to people's podcasts. I'm listening to people's social media sites. I'm reading quotes. I'm taking seminars. I'm going to courses. I'm doing all of these things, and I'm reflecting on the fact that these people put their words out. They put their thoughts out, and I'm now, like my friends, I'm a testimony that these people's thoughts helped me. But when I'm looking inside myself, I start to get tied up, Ching. Well, how do I do that? How do I go about? So now I'm confused. Now I'm no longer feeling authentic in my ability to just sit and resonate as myself, and then people are telling me that resonated to them, and that it helped to open them up, and it helped to make them feel calm, or it gave them a sense of understanding or a light on their path. They told me that, but now I'm making it a big deal because of my mindset. My mindset is complicating what's already been done. I already have a group of people telling me. So if we wanted to look at it from a marketing standpoint of view, I've already chatted, and my sample group is saying, you got a great product, just put it out there. And I'm turning that into an issue. So I'm answering, yes, I definitely agree that when we get ready to say something or do something, we can trigger ourselves by bottling ourselves up in the judgment, or making things more complicated, when the facts are already there. You already had a group of people respond when you weren't doing any of those things. So just to sit down, and if we would have said, when we were chatting with our friend group, if we would have recorded this just in its natural state, if we would have recorded this, this would have been a perfect podcast. But now that I'm going to record it, I have all of these things that I feel like this has to be this way and this has to be this way. And now my authentic frequency is compromised. So then but so now I feel shy to talk on the podcast. But if we were just sitting and chatting and I recognize you as my friend, I don't feel shy to say some of those things to you. I don't feel shy to breathe. I don't feel shy to twinkle my toes. But to put it out there, that's when we turn it into something that we've already done. We've already put our breath out there simply because we're breathing, Choying. We're breathing. So the fact that we are existing, we are already out there. And to simply continue to breathe is not going to it's not going to change that organic formula. That is just simply us. Everyone isn't going to respond to what I say. Everyone isn't going to resonate to what I say. And that's not necessary. It's simply me being the person that wrote the book that transformed my life. Some of the many books that have done that, they didn't know me. They weren't hopefully concerned about whether I was going to read it or find it or buy it. They were simply breathing. They were simply breathing the words. They were simply breathing their experience as it was at that particular moment. Because even as they were creating the book was transforming their mindset. So if I went and talked to them again, they would say, "Yeah, that's what I saw, and that's what I envisioned, and those were my experiences as I was creating that book and birthing that book into being." But now that I've done that, I've come to another or a more expanded awareness, um, and I would get a whole new or an expanded conversation from that person, but I would still have the beauty of what they were experiencing at that moment, frozen in time. And so I think that that's where, when you brought up these really important concepts about this mindset transformation, so many places where in society or in our family or in our traditions or in our culture or in our own personal beliefs about ourselves, we get caught in the web of how, when we're already being. Someone has already responded and said, "You know what, when you said that, that really helped me." And it's not in that freedom that we continue to flow. It's now that they've said that and they say continue, because all of those groups of people are saying is, "Hey, Emerald, continue to be you. Get on there with Choying and just talk like there's no one there. Don't structure it, simply be," because that helped someone. And you, Choying, speaking back to me today has helped me. I'm taking notes right now while we're doing this podcast because to me, you're dropping jewels and it's helping me to expand my awareness through you simply speaking to me and me hearing your words. And I'm able to experience you at this time because you're going to continue to transform, Chwing. And so I have a part of you that I can reference again and again and again. You don't have to wait on me. You putting your words into this podcast is giving me the ability to revisit you at this stage of your awareness as many times as I need to. And I can transform through this one point in time. You being this authentic one point in time, I'm able through this podcast to listen to you again and again and keep expanding and transforming. While if I talk to you 5 years from now, you might not even remember what you said right now. You might say, "Well, I'm sorry, Emerald, I don't really resonate to, where I was at that point in time. So I'm going to talk to you from this point of reference." If I talk to you maybe 2 hours from now, because we're doing this podcast, you will probably have some thought processes that were born through doing this podcast. So I won't necessarily be talking to the same awareness in you that I am right at this moment. But putting this on record is giving me the ability to talk to you now, later, then, and in the future. And it's I can see the importance. So what I would say to anyone who has something to say, like people will say to you, say it, record it, write it down, and don't worry about it, because that's immortalized, and that can help someone that's going to be born 100 years later. We don't know. We don't know. But what we do know is that people are saying, you have helped me. So put your gift out there. And going through that mindset transformation of going back to, for me, that like you said, that very surface word of just allowing, that allowance in me is the only requirement. Because when I was talking to that group of so-called friends, I was just simply allowing whatever was in me to flow out. I wasn't judging. And because of that, they were able to find something valuable in that, and vice versa. So that's what I'm saying. And I would like to know what your thoughts are on my perspective of that, or whatever your thoughts are.
I really appreciate you bring up a lot of great points, and you bring up really true. I say few people that I know in life where basically you understand this deeper inner knowing, understand your true expressions, right? Because the point you bring in is about, we want to empower, and especially your mindset transformation, we want to give people the hope and empower them to, they have the right to express, even if it feels negative at front. But there is another level of really how to release those trap emotions and energy. But for the mind itself, is that when people listen to this, even 5 years from now, the points you bring up is that we know, at least I know, their mindset haven't changed if they say and they confront it with, I know you said this a couple years ago. Are you lying to me today, 5 years later, and you change your mind? So my point here is that to be in the moment of expressions, we might say something today that is true for us, for you, for myself, for the listeners, that might change completely tomorrow. And I say this type of mindset goes deeper within the awareness, and not just repeating what we've started with, the allowing. And first is shutting somebody down when we hear something we don't like what we hear, or we think that is wrong for that person to say something, and we immediately respond, allow it, stop it. So maybe if I'm laughing because I'm always trying to be funny, because maybe if I don't want people to judge me, I'm gonna end this podcast talking all about all this stuff and say, I don't know. What do I know? So if someone want to hold it against me, I just gonna play to the very end. I don't know. What do I know? The more I know, the more I don't know.
Exactly. And I think that that's bringing it all full circle, because I think with the society that we've been in, and going through, like, for instance, the school system, and the school system teaches us that 1 plus 1 is 2, and 1 plus 1 is always going to be 2. And when the person, if that person is looking at that formula of 1 plus 1 is 2, and their mind starts to expand through accepting and allowing that 1 plus 1 is 2, and then they go into some altered state and they start to see something else, and they want to expand on that, and they want to say to the math teacher, can I ask you a question? What if? And it's in authentic that authenticity, of that innocence, of that willingness to explore, and not getting shut down, like you said, not feeling ridiculed and limited and laughed at, because it's the limitation that's actually the joke. Because 1 plus 1 is 2 until we figure out that it's not always 2. 1 plus 1 is 2 under the I know, until I expand, and then I realize I didn't know. Because I did know 1 plus 1 is 2, and that is a part of a pattern. But that pattern is teaching us more, like that scientist that said, we figured it out. So I know, period, at the end of the sentence. But through that awareness or that allowance to keep looking at that pattern, because as we keep looking at something over and over, again, through our own lens, not because we're being dictated to, but through our own self expression and our own nature, our own, when we were born as a child, we knew to explore, and we didn't explore because we were ignorant. We explored because we were intelligent. And this is a different mindset than what people look at us when we're in our childhood. They say, oh, well, the child doesn't know. And that would be part of that phrase. It's because the child knows, so now it's looking to find that more, that aspect of itself, what's deeper, what's beyond that, because there's an intelligent awareness there. That's what I call that. I call that intelligent awareness. And through that intelligent awareness, the child is looking to experience and explore more. When we're in that child state, we're put into a structure that tells the child there is no more. And this is a lot of times the reason why children find it difficult, and they say, oh, well, this child has a learning disability, or this child. No, that child is learning in their own unique way, but because they're put into a structure that says that is not the way you learn, that then the child is struggling not with the child's intelligent awareness. The child is struggling with the limitations of the system that says that that child is not perfect in its intelligence and its awareness of itself. And that becomes the struggle, not for the child against their own intelligence, but to fit into that system. So there were a lot of situations where people were homeschooling, and then they've labeled the homeschooling to unschooling, and they've changed some of those titles now because, again, the more we know, the more we don't know. So when people when people started to say, you know what, I'm going to take my child home, and maybe they were taking their child home because there was some difficulties in the school structure, or maybe the parents had gone through the structure and they were that child that didn't have the freedom to express themselves, and they've birthed their child and they see that aspect of their child in themselves, and they say, I'm going to give my child the freedom to be. And one of the things that I learned through homeschooling, which was because I was not homeschooled, so I had to unschool while I homeschooled. And this was something that I wrote about. I never again put this out there, which I should, because when I would share this with parents, because I was homeschooling, and I was homeschooling at a time where homeschooling was not the high banner that it was today. It was very shamed. I was told that I was abusive. I was not going to allow my children proper socialization. I was denying them the ability to fit into the structure properly. I wasn't going to be aware of the everything that they were going to need to be successful in their lives. Well, do you have a master's degree in science? Well, then you're going to limit your child's ability. But what I started to understand through my children, what my children were teaching me through unschooling me, homeschooling, I'm calling myself homeschooling, but they're unschooling. So we're both students, we're teachers and students simultaneously. So going back to this phrase, in the more I knew, the more I understood I didn't know, through letting the natural intelligence awareness take itself on a journey. So I'll give you a quick story, Choying. I had structure for the children because I was not homeschooled. So I said, okay, children, we're going to wake up in the morning, we're going to have breakfast at 8 o'clock, we're going to start school promptly at 9 o'clock. Here are your to-do folders, here's your work, this is what we're going to do. So I want you guys sitting down at 9 o'clock. I want you in class. Class starts at 9 o'clock. And so my son gets up and he had had his breakfast, and I'm running the sink full of water to wash the breakfast dishes. And he comes over to me, and he's staring there, and he's just staring, and he's just looking at the water. And he's staring and he's staring and he's staring. And I was like, okay, sweetheart, it's almost 9 o'clock. You need to be sitting down. Give me the dishes. And he said, Mom, I have a question. And I said, what's your question? And he said, I'm looking at the bubbles. And he said, how come some of the bubbles are connecting? And he said, I'm watching this one bubble bounce around the sink. And he said, why is that bubble? It connects to the other bunches of bubbles and then it pings off. And he said, but I'm watching the second bubble and it's going around and it connects to that same group of bubbles and it's magnetized and it's being held into that group of bubbles. But this bubble is just bouncing along. It's connecting, but it's not staying. It's staying independent. And I was like, you know what? I've thought that when I've taken a bubble bath, but I never thought about what I thought about. And he said, so mommy, why is that? And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, how will we figure it out? I said, well, let's get a hypothesis. I didn't wash the dishes. We sat there. We didn't do our folders. We sat there at the table. We came up with all these possibilities. All my children started participating. Well, mommy, maybe it's this. I said, let's jot that down. Let's go to the library and see if anyone else has some thoughts. And luckily they have put their books out there, right? So the library was full of people that didn't do like me. They put their things out there, right? So we go out there and we explore, and we took in everything people thought. We came up with our own hypotheses. We did it again and again. And this later, I realized, well, we had a whole day of science. So when my husband comes home, the kitchen's not clean from breakfast, right? And he's like, what did you guys do all day? And we're all excited. The children are like, Dad, guess what we thought about? We were looking at bubbles. And he's like, what? And so later that night, I'm explaining to him, and he's like, wow, that's really profound. I was like, exactly. So here I am thinking I have to come up with this whole program when life is giving us its awareness. But since my children were so young, that intelligent awareness was very much plugged in. And I started saying, you know what? When people would ask me, well, what program do you use? I said, my children. My children, like they're the best program I could ever write, right? Like I birthed the program that's teaching me science, reading, math, because in this one question, we did all of the courses that I recognized, you know what? Had I been able to live like this in school, my brilliance would have been fully intact. Like you said, Choying, I was shut down because I wasn't allowed to be Emerald. I was told to be something else, something that was created, and then I had to fit into the jacket, but I never fit in. And which one of us fit in? Some of us may have been able to assimilate better, but none of us fit in because we came as that authentic self. And had we been allowed to just be together and talk together and feel free, we would have learned so much more from each other. The teachers would have been the students, and the students would have also been the teachers. So I'm really excited about this. And this has been a huge, like I said at the beginning of this, I think I said this, 99 or 99999% of my journey at this cycle in my life. This is what this has been about. And when I look back on every single thing, I can see how that is resonating, and that has been that same repetitive question and answer for me this lifetime. So I'm really excited to do these podcasts. I am excited to get my books out. I'm excited to share what my awareness as it is at this particular point in time. It may help many people. It may help no one. But the fact that I'm putting it out there is helping everyone, if that makes sense.
I don't know, Emerald. I'm kind of questioning your mindset transformation now. No, I
That's
totally,
great.
I totally love your sharing your kids, teaching your kids the way they learn with their own ability, right? And because now you're able to understand we each have our own mindset. And I really find that society, we still continue to imitate other people's mindset because we repeat other people. It's a good way of learning. I can repeat. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a scholar. But I tell my friends, I say, I can debate any scholar. I can debate anyone because I know who I am. I know how to express myself. I'm okay with I don't know. And this is very important with all the points that you share is that I want to bring this back into the very beginning before we recorded this. You ask the questions, and this comes to about what's important for how we present this. How much deeper do we want to share this, or should we just go into not giving too much information, right? Because we are here to create the abundance, the financial aspect, the business aspect. But I want to go back to that the very beginning, to the intentions. Do you have something to share regarding how we want to approach this before we recorded this?
Yeah, so to share with everyone what Choying is referring to, I was told when I've done talks and when I've done lectures and when I've been on radio, I was told, you know what? I'm going to share something with you, Emerald. You gave too much information, and you shouldn't give so much information because who buys the cow when the milk is free? That's what people told me, right? And I was like, oh, and I was sharing with Toying, I felt a dilemma because when I'm simply being, I I'm going to go deep into what I'm feeling and what I'm expressing and what I'm living at that particular point in time. I feel like that's the only way I can convey it. And so, but on the flip side, on the mm, I guess human side of it all, the business aspect of it all, they were like, yeah, but look, no one is going to, how are you going to feed yourself? How are you going to take care of your needs? And if you can't take care of your basic needs, then how are you going to write a book? It costs money. So you're going to have to pay a publisher. You're going to have to pay someone to create the cover. Things cost. And so if you're giving everything away for free, then how are you going to even help others, even if they do want to hear you? If you're going to do a podcast, you have to pay for your internet. Maybe the podcast is free. The platform is free, but you have to be able to pay for your internet or pay for your microphones. There's things that you're going to have to invest in just to give something away for free. So I was on both sides of that because both sides are reality, right? So we can't live um, and one person, I heard one person say in a seminar that I was in a marketing seminar, they said, I questioned the person because a lot of times people think to focus in on what they're going to get back is evil, or to focus in on how much I'm going to charge. People say that throws my mindset off. I was one of those people. And this person said in the seminar, Choying, he said, if you're a beggar and you're poor, he said, how do you fulfill your destiny to give to others in an expanded awareness when you're starving? When you're in such destitute, how are you in a place and in a mindset that you can fulfill your soul's mission, which is to put out or give out or share out that you think is valuable enough to help someone else and that you've been told is valuable by others, that it's helping them and they're encouraging you to do these things. So that dilemma that I was in, the balance between being able to be myself and go in and share to the core of myself at that moment, and then being told, well, that was your flaw there, hun. You shouldn't have given so much of yourself because now everyone is full and they've eaten for free. So where is the balance? So when Choi Ying and I were discussing this balance, I loved what he said, and that's be your authentic self. And I think that is coming to the awareness that those that find value in things will support those things. And those that don't, and this is what you said to me, Twain, you said there are going to be some people that are going to hear the podcast and they're going to be full and they're going to say, that's all I need. They're going to walk away. And there's going to be others that are going to say, you know what? I want to talk to you maybe one on one, and I'm willing to invest in that reality. Just like I'm willing to invest in buying someone's book because I feel like that it's going to help me. Now, everyone isn't going to buy that person's book. I heard the lecture, and after I heard the lecture, I was willing to invest in paying to hear them if they're going to come to my state, or maybe I'm willing to take a course that they have online because I heard something that they said. So I'm willing to invest in those things because I feel that it's valuable to me. And so I loved what you shared, and you gave me the right to be authentic and to be able to give as much as I want to give in a podcast or in a free lecture, so to speak, or in a gathering, because I recognize that it's not limited to one or the other, but it's a merging of both. And anytime that we're authentic, we're going to find those that resonate authentically with that. And that's not going to be everyone. Some people are going to turn the podcast off. Some people are going to see the title and say, no, not for me, been there, done that, I'm over it. And all of that is beautiful, it's acceptable, and it's part of this living experience. But it's giving me, Joy, you gave me this morning the balance. Yes, I do. Yes, we all know we have family members. We have to take care of our own bodies. We have gas to put in the car. We're in a recession or whatever we want to say. We know that. And we know also that there's been a struggle between giving authentically and, like we were talking about, Choying, um, finding the balance in reciprocation. And so with that, when you shared with me, be your authentic self, Emerald, you know, that is already in the fabric of creation. That natural reciprocating energy is in the fabric. Because again, when we think about breathing, right, there's sometimes where we're breathing really shallowly. We don't realize it, or maybe we do. We're holding our breath. There's other times where we take in a big gulp, because that's what we need right now. But when we do that, we also somehow put back. So there's somebody that's breathing really shallowly, and they're not putting very much into the system of breath, but there's somebody that's putting a lot in. There's someone that just took a lot out, and there's someone that's putting a lot in. So that intercoursing, that divine intercoursing, takes care of itself when we're just authentic. Because there are times when we're going to breathe really shallowly. We don't need much. And so whoever can take something from my podcast and that can give them, they can feel empowered, I'm glad it did that. For those that say, hey, you know what, I want to invest in that. I want to make sure that I hear more from you. Where can I find you? What are you doing? And they're encouraging me to write books and those things. I am now able to accept and acknowledge that, and seeing that all of that is authentic. All of it is necessary. All of it is part of that flow. And it's always going to balance itself out when we're just coming from that pure place in our intentions and in our heart. That is the heart space. That is the universal love. That is the allowance. That is the awareness. So that's how I would answer that, Twing. And I just want to take a public moment to really thank you for giving me that balance today, because I was really knotted up inside my stomach, and the podcast didn't even seem, I was excited to do it, but in my core, I was feeling a lot of apprehension, because I was like, well, what if I start giving too much of myself? And that's the wrong thing to do, and I thought, now, how do I hold back? And to me, that was the wrong thing to do. So I was going in with all of these wrong things to do. I had two wrong things to do, in my opinion, until you gave me the permission and the right to be myself. So I thank you for that. And I love you for that. I really do. So thank you.
But wait, there's more. that's how that's how you sell in marketing, right?
Right.
Oh, I don't
But
know.
wait.
Yeah. But I love this because I think that's the same struggle I had over the years. With the mindset transformations, learning from all of this amazing people, books, authors, how to sell, how to put ourselves value, investing. I think investing is. It's a word. It's very constructive word. I'm not a fancy about words, but I will say that they're not investing in us. They're not investing in you or in myself. When we share authentically, when we share openly, there is no limitation. There is no expansions. How deep a level, right? Buy more. Wait for my second book. So but it's more about being value invest in themselves. And I want to touch up with really bring in a little bit more about the culture mindset around money, and why is it that we seem to we seem to spend money on things that we may think we value something, but when it comes to this kind of mindset transformation, we still have this image on these conditions that we only going to spend high dollar amounts on things that have been verified, things that are scientifically proven, things that have been successful authors or 40 years of experience. But we don't look at people like yourself, Emerald, who has this incredible wisdom that you can help people transform and just be in the present, just being able to share yourself authentically, and they get to transform and grow from the mindset to be able to have this internal awareness versus an outside instructions of, pay for this. This is what this dollar, and we measure by those expectations. We measure by those, what do I get out of it? And we've been taught this over and over and over, not knowing to break away those constructs of mindset that we also now willing to invest in ourselves, but we only investing in what people are selling us. With that, I'd like to hear your thoughts. I don't know, Emerald.
Okay, because you said a lot there. You really did. And you touched on a lot because, and I'll tell you from my own experience, I've felt that way. And when I was a little girl, my biggest passion was to read psychology magazines. And I mean, as a little girl, because I always had this desire to understand the mindset and how and why, when I would be, say, like on a family picnic, and I would sit underneath a tree. My family used to say, "You're such a weird little girl. What in the world do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, "I want to be a psychologist," and they were like, "Absolutely not." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess not." But so I would sit there and I would just observe interactions, and not, like a lot of times when people say interactions, they may think maybe arguments, or but I mean, I would just observe like core interactions. Like, I would watch the new baby in the family just looking around at all the children running around, because this baby is in the bassinet and it's in the little pumpkin seat, so it can't run, but it's observing. And I would watch the baby kick its little legs because its siblings came around, but the siblings aren't paying attention to the baby. They're just playing and making noise and throwing the ball. But the baby's really excited and aware, and it's like kicking its little legs. And I'm like, I think that baby knows how to throw that ball, even though its legs and arms aren't mature, but it knows in its mindset that it's running and playing with its older siblings. And then I would watch like little interactions, like the baby's not making any noise and the children aren't paying attention to it, but there would be some unseen communication between that child, that sibling, and its younger sibling. And that child may have its back to the baby and then just turn around like, "Oh, you're talking to me," and bend down and give it a kiss. Or may look at that child and say, "Oh, you want to play with the ball? He wants to play with the ball, mommy." And so I'm just watching and learning as a real young little girl. All of this life is happening, And I would like to talk about it or write about it, but I'm this little girl, so the adults are like, go play, and I'm playing in my mind, but I'm watching everyone else play. And so when I started to get a little older, and now I'm in high school and I'm taking psychology, I was so disappointed. Because I'm like, this has nothing to do with what I experienced in life. Like, this is, like you were saying, this is a bunch of
Uh,
talk. It's not going deep. It's not exciting. I've been a psychologist since I was teeny little girl. So by the time I'm in high school, I've been a psychologist for 15 years. But that's not documented. Like you said, that's my living experience. That's my awareness. That's where I can talk from if someone wants to share in conversation or share in intention and awareness. But that's not documented because it started as a little girl. And who's going to look at me and say, hey, this little girl is documenting things that we could talk about in science books from a certain perspective, that we could bring a fresh new look from this angle, and we could go deep, like my son looking at the bubbles in the sink, right? And so, to answer your question, why do we not invest in ourselves? Because that aspect of ourselves that we looked at and we listened to and we explored through was told that that does not exist. And if we declare that it exists, it's not been validated by someone who we say is in authority to actualize that awareness. And so now you have to go to school. So long story short, I got into college, I got into psychology, and I had to get out because it was making my brain bleed. I could not relate. I tried childhood psychology because I had already been a child and I watched child behavior. I was studying this as a little girl. I was a student and a philosopher of human interaction and human um, awareness, and where people are expanding and when they're shrinking and why. And I'm observing these things. I'm doing no different than the person that's sitting in the classroom. I'm in a universal classroom. This plane of existence is a classroom. And we're always studying and we're always teaching and we're always studying, if those are words. So when we talk about why we feel that we will spend $50,000 on a car, and we understand the value of the car and all of the things that it's going to do, and it's got these things, but we won't do that for ourselves, it's because we've been trained to do that. We see the value of the car, but who taught us to see the value of ourselves? So going back to the very beginning of this podcast, who taught that person that has something to say that they probably don't have the value stamped approved to say it out loud, or to print it out loud, or to draw it, or to teach it, or to sit down and cry it out, or whatever. Someone has to give us the authority. But when they give us that authority, they've usually stripped us from that thing that we know really made us authentic in it, which is what's giving us our real authority to speak on it. Our internal self has given us the authority because it's been authentically studying whatever it is that we're passionate about and whatever it is that we know and we love. It's given us that. And so through that authentic, I'm so sorry. I always have an issue. My tongue
That's
gets
all
stuck.
right.
That authenticity of our own inner awareness, what we're passionate about, is what we know. And that's why we're passionate about it. And that's how we see life. We see life through that passion. And that passion is teaching. And that passion, when someone speaks from that passion, I learn so much from them through my passion. I learn so much from their passion, because their passion, the passionate energy that they have, ignites the passionate energy that's in me, and that's where we merge, and that's where communication flows. It's not flowing in the words, it's not flowing in the concepts, it's flowing through the energetic connection of where we all are resonating. We're all resonating at an excitement and a joy of life and this experience that we're having called life. And we're wanting to experience and express and explore and explode into and away from and because of and through all these elements and channels that are given to us this lifetime. Because when we leave here, we'll experience another form of life. But this moment right here, we're gifted with this expression. And so for someone to say, like I was just explaining, for me to be told the way that you are authentically is wrong because it's never going to allow you to eat. You're never going to be able to sustain yourself through your authenticity. You will not, because people will not respect and respond to that. But yet they do. And yet I've talked to someone on the phone and I didn't ask them for anything and they said, "Hey, check your Cash App because I sent you something because you wouldn't believe how you helped me in an hour's time." So I sent and I couldn't believe it. And this is the part where when we're talking about this mindset transformation, this is where we start transforming our mind away from what something has told us and we really get involved in life because we each have those stories where we didn't even we didn't consider ourselves doing anything exponentially crazy. We were just being, and someone says, "Hey, I just want to let you know what you said today or what you shared or what I overheard you say. I mean, it kept me from X, Y, and Z, or it supported me into X, Y, and Z. And I want to do this for you, or I want to encourage you." So we're living what you just shared with me this morning, Choying. You helped me to remember how many times have people supported you when you weren't asking for anything. And so that is not true that you being your authentic self ends you in poverty. But your mindset must transform. Your mindset, Emerald, must transform into seeing and accepting and vibrating to the fact that people, we do support what we love and we do support ourselves and we encourage each other to support ourselves when we don't. So you did that for me this morning. You encouraged me to support myself and to believe that everything is that it's okay for me to give from the very depths of my heart in this podcast. You encouraged and you held space for me to do that. And so because of that, like you said, the podcast will help to enrich someone to do that same thing. Maybe not through our words, but through our authentic energy. That's our intentions for anyone hearing the podcast, or even for those that don't. The energy is still radiating out into the universe. And so because of that, that abundance returns. And of course, we do live in the world. And like I said, I do understand it helps people to find me if I do have social media. And when they say, "Hey, well, where can I find you? Or where can I help to um, um, support you by buying a book or taking a course?" So it is important that I get those things out there. You know, it's so that people can tangibly support what they feel is valuable and they can find that place where I've tangibly put those things out there and they can buy those things or they can support in whatever manner that I have available. So I understand it's the balance of all of that, but I'm just thankful that you gave me permission to share as authentically as I wanted to and not feel that there's something wrong with that and that I have to starve my spirit in order to feed my belly or starve my belly in order to feed my spirit. So again, what I just want to emphasize is that that balance is there, and that the more that we are transforming our mindset and we are looking at those times when people did those things and we are radiating that energy out, those kind of experiences will be more available to us because there are so many people on this planet, and it doesn't take anything for one person to be fulfilled by a small group of people. It doesn't take a lot. We don't really require a lot as human beings. We require some things, but we can only eat so much. You know, many people, there are people that feel that, to have a $10 million um, bathroom is important to them. And if it is, then it is. But the majority of us, we're just okay. We're like, hey, I feel safe. I live in a good neighborhood. My children are doing well. My grandchildren are doing well. My parents are doing well. I can travel. And most importantly, I can reinvest in my passion. That's really the basis of most people's lives. And when we each support that, it doesn't take a lot to make that person able to do that. So the books that I've purchased, no, I didn't make that person rich, but for the collective of all of us that purchased that book, that person is wealthy. Now, for my investment, it was this much. But because there's so many of us that found value in that thing, each one of us gave something, and that person is doing very well, and we're glad because we want another book from that person, or we want another seminar, or we would like to have a one-on-one, or we want to have a place where we can do a meet and greet or something like that. So we do invest in ourselves, and as we're allowed and we encourage one another like you did for me, because that was put on me in my childhood. I was told, you're not ever going to be able to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist because you're weird sitting here watching people. And that's what psychologists do. They listen, they observe, they are very interested in human interactions and the way people think about things. And they bring a person into their office and they observe them and they talk about them and they make notes. And that's what I was doing. But they said, no, you're weird because you're doing that. So you could never be what you're already authentically doing. So I had to get to become an adult where adults started to encourage me and say, hey, you can and you will and you do. And I support you. I'm supported right now. I have clients right now who they refer me many, many times over and over and over and over and over again. And people don't even say, well, tell me about yourself. They just say, hey, I was talking to my friend Karen and she wanted to know if, is it okay if I give you a call? I don't even care what you're asking. I just would like your help. So even though I'm living with that experience, I still am in that childhood mindset that hasn't transformed, where I'm concerned, even though my life isn't showing me that, I'm concerned in that old mindset that maybe I need to give less so that I can continue to eat. I'm not starving, Shwayne, at all. I've never starved. And but I'm in a mindset that I'm going to starve because I was told that. And so I don't want to give because I was told you shouldn't give. You better eat. You better take from these people. And I'm like, I feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I want to give something, and that's where my focus is. My focus is on getting all of this that I've been given and that people have shared with me out in the way I want to give back. I want to breathe out. Well, you better not breathe out, because if you breathe out, you're not going to breathe back in. Oh, well, that's disturbing. So I have to choose between death and death. Exactly, Emerald. Choose your which way do you want to die? And I didn't want to die. I just wanted to give, and through that giving, I wanted to live. So I'm saying that mindset. So if anyone is in that mindset, and I'm actually involved in some coaching, um, some coaching that helps me with that mindset to feel sure, to open myself. It's not the people. The people are supporting. It's my mindset that even when I see that, I still am living in that childhood place where people said, you cannot, you're not valuable, what you have to say isn't valuable. And the other end of that is when I grew up and I was in the adult world and people said, you better stop giving your gifts away for free. You better stop doing that. You better stop giving so much out. And I was like, well, in this world, that does make sense. But I felt I felt constricted. I felt limited. I felt like I couldn't give anything. If I couldn't give it all authentically, then I couldn't give anything. So what am I even doing here? Why am I? So then I feel like I'm a charlatan and a fraud. I feel like I'm trying to sell something, which my passion doesn't have anything to sell. It has something to share. And that's what I wanted this sacred space to be able to do. And because I shared it, people said, here, because you gave something to me and I find it valuable. I want to encourage you to do that again. So here's something. So maybe that'll give you some money to write your book, or that'll give you a place where you can travel, because I would like to maybe we could go into Hawaii and and we could all sit by the ocean and have these discussions with one another, because we're only living this lifetime one time. So the more we are getting out of it, the more we do invest in those things. We're just being told we don't, and we're being encouraged not to, and we're creating a mindset that doesn't see it. But look at all the books that are being sold every day. Look at the seminar, look at all the online courses, look at all the people that go into rooms now. Look at YouTube. Okay, YouTube got to the place where they came out with this super chat. And now people are just listening. They're not asking for these people's background. They just want to hear what this person has to say. They like this person. They feel connected to this person. So they're super chatting this person for allowing to open up the room so that I can get on here and be one with you. So we invest a lot into what we love. And we invest a lot into things we've been taught to invest in. But I love that word, that authentic love of self is where and this is where I feel like, well, to finish that thought, is where we do invest. And what I've been, again, with my psychology love of looking at things in life, I started looking at social media took on this, changed the foundation of media to the point where media had to get on social media, because they were selling commercials and they were going through all these marketing things, and they were saying, hey, in order to get these people to do this, we better sell sex, we better sell colors, we better convince these people that, without our product, they're not in the in game, they're not in the in crowd, whatever. And they watch people come on YouTube with poor lighting, poor um, um, mics, poor sound quality, just in my living room, out here walking the dogs or whatever, my children in the background. And these people were getting supported. There was no commercials. These people, people were asking, hey, how can I support your channel? How can I do that? Because I love your channel and I support what I love, because it's natural. It's natural. We all do it. But we've been placed in a structure that says, no, you don't, and no, you shouldn't, and this is how we should treat each other. We should treat each other shallowly. Don't give to your friends. Don't give anything to your friends, because they may not give anything back to you. But you don't give to get in the natural order of things. You give because you're full inside. That giving comes from a place of you wanting to put that out there. It's not you wanting to get from someone. And when they receive it, they want to give. So it's the giving that's the natural figure eight. That's the infinity cycle of energy in the universe. I wanted to give something to you, Twain, and you then wanted to give something back to me. That's that divine intercoursing, or that divine figure eight, that infinity of energy that keeps feeding itself. And the more you give to me, the more I wanted to give to you. The more I wanted to share with you, the more I wanted to do something for you. So this is where I'm in the process of this mindset transformation, Twain, where I need to pay attention to what I'm living and what I'm experiencing, not what someone told me I was going to live, because my life has proved them wrong. And I'll just pause there and see if you have anything to share.
Oh, I don't know, Emerald. No, I learned so much from you listening to that. There's a lot of knowledge and wisdom there, and I think I can kind of just collect those thoughts from what you share. Is that I think what I learned from you, the mindset, the word itself, the set is very restricted. I think when we made up a mind of something, it is conditions how we learn how to choose. That is, I always say, the illusion of choice. There's a set in the mind that how we choose to spend, how we choose to invest in ourselves and others is that we restrict ourselves by saying that I don't have enough, and I'm gonna hold on to
Right,
this until I work something out, until I create this new thing. So we go into the future, but not realizing we are doing the right thing. That what we are trying to break free from this mindset, but our set is already set and constricted. So we still hold ourselves back, not knowing energetically we reverse the whole entire process. So to be able to say, I don't have it, even in the moment of now, but to say I'm going to change my mindset, I'm going to break free from it, I'm going to transform it, I'm going to do what I can to go ahead and make it work in the now, even though I still feel restricted on that I learned from you is that now I'm able to transform first, and then I go in with it. And the more we go in, the more we relearn, we break apart this whole set conditions of how we put ourselves already in this stuck ways of doing things that we're not even happy, and to be able to come in and find people like yourself, or maybe read a book and listen to this whole podcast, and get all this things knowledge, and then we sit there and we're not doing a single thing about it because we say, well,
right.
so yeah, give me some time, give me some time, and I say that I always do give people time, but it isn't me trying to sell anybody anything, and this is where the conflicted mindsets I've been learning from all of this society, how they market us, how we consume to their emotions, psychology. They learn and understand the emotions, so they just bombarded us with craps that make us unable to free ourselves. So what you get to do is you help people transform those mindset and completely free themselves from those restricted conditions. And then you have to invest because we are here some form. What do you think that we are doing? We're spending time and energy that we can do something else. We spend those time and energy to share this information that we're not even limited ourselves. We're going to say we're going to go all the way deep into how we want to flow with this. So you listen to it. The more you listen to it, the more you don't know.
Exactly. Right.
So, we're getting close to time. I just want to acknowledge you, incredible, your incredible teachers, way, way powerful with your wisdom. And when I say wisdom, I'm not referring, especially not a judgmental of anyone who's in the field of school, in educations, in psychology, or in scholars, or in scientific. I'm talking about the wisdom of the inner experience of really understand how to transform your own life, how to take what you know and don't know, how to merge them into the ability that this is who I am today because who I was in the past and who I'm going to transform, that comes in the exchange of we are equally, compassionately, and authentically going to support, loving, and help each other. And of course, in right now with the money, with the finance, with the wealth, don't judge it. Break free from that. And with that, I want to give you a lot of gratitude, Emerald.
Well, thank you, Joying. And I feel the same. I feel your wisdom has really expanded me. And I love that you keep bringing it back to the more we know, the more we don't know. And I think that in part of the more we don't know is where life is exciting. Because just think about it, Chwing. If we got to the place where we knew it all, what would we do tomorrow? It's kind of like when I had some friends growing up in school, and I didn't know, like, a lot of my friends were wealthy. They didn't act like it. I mean, they did have a few things that I didn't have, but they were wealthy. And it wasn't until I was an adult and I realized, talking with some other people and classmates, and they were like, "Hey, did you know so and so, like, they're extremely wealthy." And I had a few experiences with them that was a little overwhelming, because if you don't come from a really wealthy background and someone's extremely wealthy, and what they take as normal everyday life is overwhelming to you. But it was an interesting dichotomy, because when I talk with them, they were like, "You're wealthy." And I'm like, "No, you're wealthy." And they're like, "No, you're wealthy." And I'm like, "No, you're wealthy." And they're like, "No, you're wealthy." And so it's that last part of that, the more you know, the more you don't know, because that is like wealth. If you have so much wealth and you've traveled around the world and you've seen everything, life becomes dull. But if you traveled around the world and everything's new again and again and again and again, it doesn't matter whether how you were traveling around the world. The fact that you see that thing again for the first time, that's where the wealth is. And so, on one hand, we're convinced that everything is centered around money. And so when we get ready to share, and we're coming from that authentic place, and that buildup is inside of us, and something is, our inner self is telling us, our inner wisdom is telling us, "Hey, put that out there. Just blah, let it go." And when we get ready to do that, somebody's like, "Ho, ho, 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 you better wait. You better hold on." And you're dammed up, and you need to let this free. You know, this is your self-guiding system that's telling you to share, breathe out. You've taken in, now breathe out for your own balance. And to be in a structure that says, "Don't breathe out unless X, Y, and Z," you're dying. But when you just allow that, and you find that everybody is rich in their perspective and in their journey, and they have something to say, and it makes, everybody is a book, everyone's a song, everyone's a dance, everyone is an artistic expression. And when we get a chance, and unfortunately we won't get a chance to view everyone, but those stolen moments where we get those chances, and people put themselves out there, and we're able to view them, we're able to jump on their YouTube channel, or we're able to jump on their podcast, or they were able to meet them in Hawaii, or we're able to get on a Zoom call with them, and we're able to share, and we're adding that aspect of our lives that we're going to take with us when we leave here. All of this awareness that we're gathering, that we wouldn't have, Choying, I wouldn't have this awareness that I have today had I not had a conversation with you. You have added, you being you coming from your unique place in creation and shining your light out. How did I even meet you? And I think about that a lot. I'm like, when you think, how did I even get here? How did I even meet this person? You bump into someone at the store, and the next thing you know, you've been lifelong friends, and you're like, how did that even happen? And these are the things that I love to look at on a deep level. What is that pulled us together out of the fabric of creation? I didn't even know you existed. And here you are, my friend. And now we're doing a podcast, and we're sharing ideas. And we found that we had so many mutual passions together that we both feel it's time for us to share and put out there. All of that synchronicity was already there without me doing anything. I didn't have to have my my people find you. It just happened organically. And this is where my passion is, everyone. My passion is in us transforming into that mindset. And when I say transforming into that mindset, it's simply becoming aware, because that's where we really are. But that mindset continuously transforms, because we have all of this wealth of each other to add to our experience. So we're not going to be bored. We're not going to find life as dull. We're not going to feel like, we're not going to know what old age is. That age is old because we're not doing anything different. We stop experiencing and expanding. And why? Not because that was our truth, but simply because we were told, oh, well, now you're this age, so you shouldn't be running around like that anymore. You're not young. Really? Since when? Where? But scientists said, Twain, that when they looked at the heart, they said the heart never ages. They said your heart is the same age it was when it was constructed in your mother's womb. And since everything is saying, the ancients said, be heart centered. So what is the symbolism of that? What do we really understand about that in the true core of this human experience, this soul, spiritual human experience that is so unique and divine, and it's so exciting to explore. So I'm like, hey, I'm definitely supporting you. I'm supporting whoever is doing anything that is resonating with me because I want more of that. So it's like going to the amusement park or going to the fair. It comes every year, and yeah, I want to go again. I want to go again. So how much are the tickets? I'm there. You know what I mean? So we support, and we just have to. And I love what you were sharing when you said, um, I wrote down when you said, free yourself from restricted conditions or restricted conditioning. And I wrote that down as a note to myself, you know, for a note to myself. I wrote that down. So I just wanted to, because like I said, just talking to you when I'm going about my day and my errands, I get these jewels, I get these gems. And so that's the whole book in and of itself. You know what I mean? So, and I would pay to read that book. I would.
We gotta invest in ourselves, right?
Exactly, exactly. So I definitely would. So thank you. This I very much enjoyed. This is my very first podcast ever, everyone. So I have no idea how it's going to come out, and I love it the way that it is. I love being here and being authentic and the essence of everything. And I just want to say thank you. Welcome. Welcome to our podcast, and thank you to my beloved co-host, Toying. And I look forward to doing this again and again. So I'll pause, Toying.
No, thank you so much. I just going to end with basically, I'm excited to explore more and learning from you on the transformation, even myself to grow more. But the last thing, of course, for anyone listening, is about being your own authentic self. Is the ability to experience this from Emerald or from me, or actually we doing this together with this workshops. It's not anymore the instruction that we normally see. We'll give some guidance, but we speak from experience of what life is to help each other to break down this type of constricted mindset that keep us in feeling small and shrinking. And applying things in life is really a form and expressions that can we express freely. And the more we free ourselves from this restriction, the more we live authentically. And we're going back to the same thing. The more I know, the more I don't know. But I'll tell you, I value myself, I value Emerald, I value what we do. So with that, I want you to value yourself and basically invest in yourself and reach out to us. There will be a lot of at the end of this. This is not the end of it. This is the beginning of it. Beginning of it, because the next one we're gonna talk something that gonna be continuations of how this conversations to help us pay more attentions to our awareness, be the ability of what we have think what life is. Whether you want to do go back to the ancient time or go back to wherever your belief system is, but coming back to the heart, right? Thanks for sharing that. I did not know in science that our hearts never age, and I feel like the more randomly, the more crazily I do things intentionally of love, expressions of what it is, my own ways of understanding the self, that the more I feel, the more enjoyments my life just began. So thank you again.
Thank you too, Choying. And I just want to close out by saying it's the allowance, because when we really understand, we're looking at somebody and we're saying that's them. And so when I buy this book and I say I'm investing in me, it also invests in them because they and I are one. You know, there is no, and this is that where we're transforming our mind too, you know. So people will say, well, hey, when you invest in the poor in society, you actually help yourself. You help that entire society to thrive. And it's that same concept. And so when I invested in the book, and I've invested in many books. I have many, many books, and I still buy books. When I invest in that book, I'm thinking it's for me. But guess what? I fed that person's family. And I gave that person well being because of what the words that they put down on the page that is giving me well being. So it's that reciprocal, like I said, that energetic figure eight, that infinity of giving, which is what everything is based on. And I love what she said, and I'm going to close with this when you talked about giving from the heart space. And so that giving, everyone is giving that same thing. So I have something to give, and you have something to give, and so we're all givers. And because we're all givers, we're all receiving from the givers. The givers receive, and the receivers are givers. And so it's that again, that energetic figure eight, that infinity of life. Everything in nature is giving and supporting everything else in nature because nature is just nature. It's one beautiful co-creation, and it's one beautiful expression of unity in its individual expressions. So everything is supporting everything. You know, the tiny little bug, it's tiny little, and I don't want to go on, but I'll say this one last thing. I was looking at a science, a nature show, and they said that they found out that the flapping of the butterflies making um, their pilgrimage from one place to another balances our whole entire planet. So imagine that, you know. So they're giving while they're doing for themselves, they're giving to us, and um, that's how the divine has structured it all. That is that divine love, in my opinion. So I thank you again. Grace and blessings to everyone listening. Grace and blessings to you, Choying, and I look forward to sharing again.
That's a
This is
beautiful.
Emerald.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying this is Emerald, and I am complete. Thank you.
Let me back channel you on that.
Yeah, thank you. I
No,
love that. There were certain things that culture, that clubhouse culture. I love two things about it. When they say holding, thank you for holding space. I thought that was so profound. And when people would say, I am complete, I love that. I love that. So thank you very much.
no, thanks for a beautiful closing out the message here. So I'm gonna end it again with the basically, if you love this, you love what Emerald and I are sharing, more and more of this stuff. Please share it. Please reach out. It's the only way to support us, so we can also support other people and support you. We're here for you and authentically loving you, no matter how we feel. Maybe have different way of thinking. But with that, looking forward to for our next podcast. Bye bye.